Twyford and Reading. Platform 3, British Rail apologise for the inconvenience.
Hello again, you're watching Everard Junction, and today is part 16 of building the model railway, and in this part I will be continuing with the shed with particular focus on the roof. So I've made a little bit of progress already. What I'm using is the Wills asbestos corrugated sheet that you can buy. As you can see by the label, this was £3 and you get 4 of those sheets in a pack. I've then been taking the sheet, cutting them down the middle. They do provide a handy line for doing so. So I've been basically cutting them in half, so I'm getting 8 of those per pack of 4, and I'm just working out where things are going to go on the roof. So as you can see, I've painted the pieces I've cut already. This is just a light grey from the Humbrol acrylic range again, and it's by no means the final finish. This is purely a base colour. There'll be a lot of streaking and weathering effects. So the plan is to have, as you can see by the strip I've laid out here, a long continuous strip down both sides, similar to where I've placed this short section, running all the way down both sides, with a slight overhang over the brick, but not huge. It won't be anything like that. It'll be a bit more subtle than that, but a slight overhang which will allow me to fit drainage and then all the drain pipes and stuff, which will add a nice bit of detail. Then what I'm going to do is get another piece. So with the other piece, what I'll do is I'll cut it down the middle, and it will sit over the middle like that, so it will sit something to that effect. That then leaves a nice big gap to fit a skylight of some description, which will allow me to see into the shed and also allow me to see the steelwork inside. There'll also be some short pieces running between the 2 layers of sheeting, which will individually square out each window in a similar manner to how the wall has been done, which will just continue the sort of architectural theme that the shed has got. At least that's the plan. And then once that's all glued and secured in place, I'll be adding ventilation to the roof. So it'll be either those round sort of chimney type ones, or the sort of square shaped roof ventilators near the windows, and there'll also be a catwalk running along the top, so workers can get up here, perform maintenance, clean the windows and whatever else you do on the roof of a large building. So I'm going to set about securing the side pieces, or the end pieces if you want, down this edge. I'll do both sides and I'll work my way up into the middle of the shed, and I'll also look about tidying up the very end piece and getting a frontal face on each end of the building. Okay, so I have glued and secured the portions of the roof on the bottom of both sides. So the next stage is to basically get exactly the same type of piece, cut it in half again, but don't cut it all the way through, so that you can fold it and then simply place it on top of the roof. And then what I'll do is run the windows and the ventilation along this panel, and the bonus of that will be that you can actually still see quite happily inside the shed. So there we have the roof pieces all installed and given an additional coat of paint. So they're just that grey at the moment, but they will be weathered, as will the sides. Bit of trimming and touch up and a few bits and bobs to do, but you expect that on something this big. So the windows will run down this length and should look quite good, and as you can see, visibility of the steel frame now the roof sections are in place is restricted, but not too bad. Actually, you can see a lot of the steel work still, which is what I wanted to achieve. And then you can see, if you look through one of the windows, just how much of the steel work is visible. So that's come out good. That's what I wanted. The main feature for me anyway is the brass frame. So next thing I'm going to do is look at the windows. I'm going to prototype some windows, have a couple of sort of sessions of making up some windows, seeing what sort of style I'm going to go for, how they'll be made. I'm not sure yet if the windows will just be continuous all the way down here, or if I might have some corrugated sheeting just to divide each window into a section. I'm kind of liking the idea of a continuous run of windows, interrupted ever so often by a ventilation duct. But I will do some more research and see what goes on, because there's lots of different designs out there. Okay, so the time has come to start building the windows. I'm focusing on the windows on the sides of the building first, and we'll move on to the roof as I progress. This is a template I've made for the window with roughly what I will be doing. It's a traditional industrial style window that would have been commonplace on a large industrial building from the 1960s up until the 1980s, 1990s. I'll be making all the windows completely from scratch. I haven't been made aware of anything that's commercially available, and when I designed the building I just cut the holes for the windows that I thought looked right and would have worked for the building. So I always intended to scratch build the windows. So I have here a piece of clear plastic, very thin clear plastic from Evergreen Plastics. I've left the protective paper on the underside of it because then it's easy to see the space it is occupying. One of the issues when working with clear plastic is it's difficult to define edges and cut things when it's difficult to see where it goes because it's clear. And then I've got some Evergreen plastics again. This is just some plastic strips, and this particular one is the number 102. It's quite fine. That'll be used to make the edges of the window, so around the edge. I've got some thinner stuff which is product code number 10, which will form the inside area of the frame. So I think what I'm going to do is lay the strips onto here and glue them as I go, and basically build all the windows on this sheet, and then when I'm ready and it's all dried I'll just cut the windows out of the sheet of plastic, so I can assemble them all flat and together and use these pieces in their full length. It will save a bit of time on cutting. So I'm just going to basically make an A4 square of windows and then cut them out. At least that's the plan. So I shall get started, and hopefully it won't be too tedious, but we'll see. Okay, I've just started, and so far so good. It's going to be a little bit difficult to film, but I will show you what I can. The parts are extremely small and I have to get very close to the work in order to be able to see what I'm doing. So I will film what I can as I put these together. And what I'm using to glue the strip to the clear plastic is the same Deluxe Materials plastic glue, but I'm using the Deluxe Materials pin flow tool. Now this is basically a fine needle applicator with a glass tube. It's really nothing more than that. But what it does is extremely precise. It basically just lets the glue flow out the end of the nozzle via gravity, and as you move it along whatever it is you're doing, it applies a tiny bead of glue, probably about 1 millimeter wide, probably even less than that, maybe 0.5 millimeter wide, and it just applies the bead of glue right where you need it and no more. So I have the benefit of securing the frame to the clear plastic really nicely. These windows shouldn't fall apart over time, and also at the same time I'm not clouding the plastic with excess glue. So I shall keep making them. Okay, I've made the first window, and as you can see, that needle applicator is very good at putting on the glue. You have to look very closely to see any imperfections caused by the glue in the plastic. So from normal viewing distance, say there, it should look perfectly fine. So I'm just going to offer it up to the shed and just make sure that the dimensions are okay, and I'll carry on with the rest of them. There it is. I adjusted the number of supports in the frame ever so slightly from the original plan. So I had 2 going down this side, so I thought it'd be better just to do 2 in the middle as well. Also it just opens up the window a little bit more, makes it easy to see inside. You can see there's no trouble at all seeing through the window. So very pleased with how that is looking. The only problem is there's a few more to make, so it's going to take a while, but I think it's worth the effort. That looks really nice. Okay, I've well and truly got bored of making the windows, So I'm going to move on to doing some windows again, but at least they're a different shape. I'm going to have a look at how I'm going to go about putting the skylights in, and go from there. Okay, using some bits of angle, I've come up with this. That looks a bit strange at the moment. These are going to be where the roof ventilation points are going to be. The notches are for the frame in the shed, and then obviously in here will be filled with the glazing eventually. So if I offer it up to the building and slot it in, make sure it's quite a tight fit. Okay, there we go. So imagine that frame painted the same dark green as the steel work inside the shed, and then I'll have the glazing inside there, and all weathered and everything. I think that will look quite good. I've managed to get it flush with the corrugated roofing. When you actually look at the pictures of these buildings, some of them were raised up, but they were only raised if they were right over the midsection of the roof. Because if you think about it, if it's raised up sort of down the side somewhere and it rains, the rain gets on here and it runs to here and then it stops and it all pools up around here, and eventually the warehouse or building will leak. So I've sunk the glazing right down level with the corrugated roofing, so in real life when it would rain onto here and it would just run straight over the whole lot and down the side. So I'm going to continue building this until it goes all the way to the end on both sides. I've got to order some more of this angle, haven't got quite enough, and while that's on its way I'll carry on building the rest of it. So I'll get the frames together, I'll paint them green, and then once they're painted green I can go and put the glazing in from underneath, which will be relatively easy. Big bits of glazing, and the space underneath allows for margin for error, so that shouldn't take too long to actually put the glass in, and then they can be put back up in here. And to be honest, they fit so well I might not even bother gluing it, might just leave it like that. We shall see. Okay, so I've airbrushed it green. That's all I can make at the moment, waiting on more material to arrive, but looks quite good in the green, contrasts well with the steel frame. So I'll leave it there for this video. Plenty to be getting on with, but I've got to wait for some more plastic art to turn up before I can build any more of this framework for the windows and the roof. And right now I cannot be bothered to build any more side windows. So that's it for now, and I'll be back as soon as I can with another video.